I'm Nathan and welcome to Stories with a Twang. Today's episode is called The Bridge in My Friend's Town is Definitely Haunted by Brian C. Sloan. I was meeting up with a friend in the town of Sullen Oaks, but due to procrastination, I was running late. Sullen Oaks was a small town, but spread out. There were long stretches of road in between neighborhoods, and they could be quite lonesome. It was such a stark contrast to the beautiful scenery, but the lack of lighting was downright unnerving. I didn't scare easily, though, and took it all in stride. That is until I came to Tanner Bridge. Judging by the looks alone, it was not an intimidating bridge. It was a simple wooden structure that crossed over a rather cold-looking river. Some voice within me began shouting for me to turn around. As I got closer, my intuition was tugging at my brain so hard that I actually stopped right before the bridge began. I kept scanning for any sign of danger or anything to explain this sense of foreboding, but found nothing. I scolded myself for being childish and stepped on the gas. Around a quarter of the way in, my car began to sputter. "I filled up as soon as I got into town," I muttered. Checking my tank showed that I had plenty of gas. The car faded quickly and soon came to a dead stop. In denial, I tried turning the key 5 times, but the engine showed no sign of life. "Engine failure?" I queried aloud. Lucky for me, my dad was a mechanic, and I could figure out the problem from taking a quick look. With flashlight in hand, I exited the car and took a quick look under the hood. After checking over everything, I was shocked to find no signs of an issue. I just tuned everything up, so there was no logical reason it would up and die like this. Exhaling slowly, I went back into the car and got my phone out to call my friend, when my radio suddenly crackled to life. The hissing of the static made me jump, and I dropped my phone inside that irritating space between the seats and the console. Damn, lost to the abyss. I began messing with the knobs on the radio to turn it off, but nothing worked. There shouldn't be any power to it, should there? Feeling thoroughly creeped out, I jammed my hand into the space where my phone fell and began to feel around. Just as I was starting to get a hold of my phone, a voice came over the radio. "Where is she?" It was the voice of some woman I'd never heard before. The spacious echo of her voice instantly sent a shiver through me. She sounded sad and desperate. But even more so, she sounded unearthly. There was no way to properly explain it, but I immediately sensed that she didn't belong. And just as quickly as the strange things were happening, they stopped. I sat in a moment of silence with my phone in hand. After collecting myself, I called my friend and let her know that I was having car trouble. "Oh, do you know what's wrong with it?" "I have no idea. The engine just died, but everything looks fine." "Huh. Weird. If you don't know what's wrong, I doubt anyone else will. I'll come get you. Where are you?" Tanner Bridge." There was a pause that concerned me. "Is something wrong with that? Hello?" The line was dead. "Okay, don't freak out. Just some weird electrical disturb..." At this, the sound of a loud splash demanded my attention. It wasn't a large frog or something like that. It had to be a good-sized rock or maybe even... "Stop! Don't do that," I said aloud. Then again, if someone did jump off the bridge, shouldn't I check if they're okay? Fighting against my better instincts, I flung my door open and aimed my flashlight at the river below. I scanned for a ripple in the water to indicate the source of the splash, but the water was eerily calm. "What the hell's going on with this place?" I murmured. Then I heard something that froze me dead in my tracks. No, it couldn't be. It was the sound of a baby crying. At first, I thought it was coming from below the bridge, so I darted my flashlight around the surface. There was absolutely nothing to see. The sound moved in another direction, and I followed it with my light, but there was nothing there either. The sound changed yet again, and it was coming from everywhere, all at once. It wasn't close, far, or anything in between. The sound of the baby's cry was just there. As suddenly as it started, the crying stopped. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in the eerie calm. Not knowing what else to do, I walked the short distance back to the entrance of the bridge and shined my light on the embankment for any sign of life. That was when I saw it. Muddy footprints trailed from the edge of the water to halfway up the embankment. I squinted my eyes to make sure I was seeing correctly. The prints were indeed there. Even stranger was the fact that they were fresh and it hadn't been raining. Then, before my very eyes, I saw something I truly couldn't believe. A new footprint appeared in the mud, as if an invisible foot had pressed into it. "No way," I whispered in awe. Another print appeared, followed by another, making its way towards me. Screw this. I turned on my heels back to my car. That's when the wailing started. "Where's my baby?" The awful forlorn voice was the same woman I heard on my radio. This time, it was coming from behind me and much louder. The woman was panicked, pleading desperately. Her volume intensified, and by the time I dove into my car, the disembodied voice was screaming, "Help me! Where is she? Where's my baby?" I locked my doors, crawled into the back seat, and pulled a blanket over my head. The woman's voice approached the car, and I was trembling with fear. "Don't come in, don't come in, don't come in." Just as the woman's shriek rose to a fever pitch, it faded away. Daring to peek out from my blanket, I saw that there was nothing at my window. I sat up and tried to catch my breath. Once I was breathing normally again, I got into the front seat and tried calling my friend again. My friend was apparently ahead of the game. Blinding lights forced me to hold my hand up in defense. I opened the door with one hand and stepped out. "It's me! Come on!" my friend shouted from the car. As soon as I heard her voice, I bolted across the bridge. The sound of my shoes reverberating off the wood was a form of catharsis, making each step further away from the horror behind me. Or so I thought. Right as I was clearing the end of the bridge, something stopped me. I jerked backwards and felt a hand grip my arm. Daring to look behind me, I came face to face with the apparition of a bloodied woman with torn clothes and a bulging eye socket. Her neck was twisted in an unnatural angle as if it had been broken. "Please help me!" the woman screamed into my face. I was paralyzed with fear, only able to marvel at her piercing dead eyes. Another hand pulled me in the other direction, and I came to as my friend freed me from the woman's grasp. We both ran to her car as fast as we could manage. On the drive home, I recounted my harrowing tale to her. My friend explained that she booked it to the bridge as soon as I told her where I was. Apparently, there was an awful history attached to Tanner Bridge. 50-some-odd years ago, a woman was admiring nature on the side of the bridge with her child. It was more of a scenic spot at the time, and there weren't as many cars driving in that area. A driver came across the bridge too fast and bumped into her, causing her to drop her child into a shallow area of the river below. In a panic to save her child, she leapt off the bridge and slammed into the ground near her child. She couldn't move due to her broken neck and could only call out in distress until she succumbed to her injuries and died. The driver that hit her was the only witness to the event and took off in fear. He didn't confess until years later. Apparently, he turned himself in out of sheer guilt. Many times he found himself hanging around the bridge in some strange way of coping with what he did. He would hear the voice of the dying woman calling out for help, and the guilt became too much for him to bear. The story of the man's confession hit the local paper, and teenagers would soon hang out near the bridge at night to see if they could experience the ghostly activity. It didn't take long before all the local kids stopped coming because their experiences were simply too horrific for them to come back. As in my case, cars were known to die right on the bridge where the woman jumped to her death. My friend told me that Tanner Bridge was so notorious for paranormal activity that another bridge was built to avoid it. Only the locals knew about the story, so she didn't think to tell me. So, if you ever decide to visit Sullen Oaks, make sure you know the way around Tanner Bridge. That is, unless you want an experience that will scar you for life. Alright everyone, that's it for this week's story. I would like to give a giant thank you to Brian C. Sloan for letting me read their story on the show. I would also like to let you know that this story is included with many others in their new book, The Dark Place in Your Mind, Strange Tales of Horror. I'll include a link in the bio if you're interested. If you have any stories you would like me to read on the show, you can send them on over to storieswithatwang@gmail.com. The show is on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Stories with a Twang Podcast. You know, it would mean an awful lot if you could rate and review the show wherever you listen, and don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube as well. It could really help the show grow. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and until next time, remember that a little twang goes a long way.